Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today is a really easy card, but it is a popular one at the moment. This technique is, I'm going to call it layered circles, but this is a very popular technique and it is very, very simple to create. So I thought I should do a video show you how to make the design, and not only that, but finish it off into a couple of different finished cards to give you a couple of options. So I'm going to be using some coloured cardstock for this one. Of course you can colour your own, that is a easy, fantastic way to do it as well. I'm using the Roses cardstock. For this one you are going to need some circles, layered circles. This is the Infinity Hero Arts die set. These are well worth investing in, and there are lots of different shapes. I suggest the basic shapes are fantastic. I will use these all the time if you are into die cutting. And I'm going to pick out 5 circles. Now I'm actually going to leave one circle in between each one. So I'm kind of getting every second circle out, if that makes sense. And I think the trick with this is to go bigger than you think you want to go. So I only wanted kind of a medium-sized image in the middle. But this big circle felt big, but I promise it'll work out. Then I'm going to cut the largest and the smallest circle with the darkest color. It doesn't matter which color you want to do. And then next up, I'm going to use the one down and then the one up from the middle. Basically, you want to create the opposite of the circles. So, and I guess there's no rules. No one says that you have to do it this way. You actually don't have to create the opposite. You could put them in any order that you wish. But you basically, unless you want to have the absolute identical on the other side, you can kind of end up having a play around with it, and whatever look you're going for or whatever you like, then you can end up with. But this is just the way that I chose to do it today. So I kind of have the opposite. I didn't need to die cut the middle one because I can cut that one in half. It'll be the same. Now this is the adhesive that I love, and this is just the way that I do it. So I use this Tombow removable adhesive, my perfect removable adhesive. Pop a little bit on each circle, layer all 5 pieces of these cardstock up, and for this one there will be 4. Now I just eyeball it. Does this technique have to be perfect? No, not at all, and I'll show you it will be just fine. Now I don't even measure. I kind of just have those 2 little bits up the top of my trimmer, and you can kind of balance them in between there. If you rock the circle in between there, it kind of fits nicely, and then you get half. So I didn't measure. You could measure. That would probably be better. But honestly, if I just eyeball it and that little bit up the top, I was fine. Now all you have to do here is stick these together. I chose some liquid glue, and you want to center them all to the very left. And then once we have done this lot of 5, so whatever you do, center them all to the very left. I've seen some people leave a gap, but that's not my preference. I think this way kind of looks the best. And then on the others, you want to center them all to the very right. So whatever you do, you want to center them to the opposite ends of each other. Now I'm, as I said, going in the opposite order of what I started with, and that will kind of make the wave continue. Now once you have got all of this sorted, the gluing, I'm going to pop these aside for a second to let these dry, but you can see how they are going to fit together. And then I'm going to move on to the background. Now, as a little bit of background noise, I'm going to use the Organic Linen 3D embossing folder from Altenew. I quite like for this occasion a little bit of kind of, I called it noise before, but a little bit of texture in the background. Just a little bit of something going on rather than plain white cardstock, but you could use any kind of embossing folder that is just kind of a neutral pattern. I think is nice for the background. And you can see there, I do love this linen. I think it's really, really simple, and yet it gives gorgeous texture to the paper. And if you even add a little bit of ink and things, it does really look like linen, but I'm going to keep it straight white for today. I do need to trim this down a little bit. I want to give this a little border. So for the minute, I always have my card fronts cut down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. So for this one, at the minute, it's cut down just a little bit less than that. Now this one here is Simon Hurley's Flower Picking Friends. This is probably one of my ultimate flower stamp sets that I have, and I don't have much room in my craft space. This is one of those stamp sets I'm never getting rid of. I love the sentiments. I love the gorgeous big flowers. They are right up my alley. They're perfect. So I won't be getting rid of this one. But anyway, this one just says, hello, my friend. And I hadn't stamped this little combo together before. So just to check it and check there was no fluff on my stamp, I stamped it on my card base first. Now I just stamped it randomly. I know I'll be covering it up. It was just because I couldn't be bothered finding a scrap piece of paper, and my card front seemed like a good place to pop it. I'm going to use some liquid glue. This is the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish, and this will give you a second to wobble it around and kind of get it in the right place so that you can line everything up. But as you'll see in a minute, it takes a minute or so to dry, and I'm going to be lucky enough to actually peel this off again in a minute because I change my mind. Now, just to line these up, I am going to pop this little piece of low-tack tape across the two of them, and that way I know that from the front they are all lined up where I want them to go, and I can kind of just hold one piece and pop them across the front of my card. Now, from here, it doesn't really matter if your two pieces are perfectly lined up because we're going to fix that in just a little bit. It's a little trick I like to do just to make things easier. Then I actually die cut that whole circle out again. It's the same size that I die cut originally, but I just like having a whole circle there for the sentiment, and it kind of begins that first wave of color. Now I was looking at this and I thought, I don't like it. I don't like the outside. So at this point, I decided that I am going to try and see if I can lift this off. I did get a little bit of ripping, but nothing that I can't hide anyway. Then I'm going to take one of the colors that I used in the wave and add this as a tiny little border, just adding a little bit of color to that very, very white background. Now, often I love a white on white background, don't get me wrong, but I do think that this just changes it enough to give it that little pop of color. So this time we're going to try again, pop this down with a little bit of glue, and I like that much, much better. So it's just got a tiny thin border, and then I'm going to pop this aside all to dry, and then we're going to finish this off in just a minute. Now, these are some more circles that I die cut. I actually went a little bit smaller with these ones because my last card was landscape, and for this one I want to go portrait. So I am going to pop my little circles in place. I used a bit of an array of blues and greens and oranges and yellows, and honestly I just took them all from the same paper pad, and then that way I know that they are going to work together and I don't have to guess if I've got my colors coordinating or anything. But honestly, any colors you're going to put together will be just fine. You can see how it's going to fit together nicely. So I use my little bit of mint tape, and then that way you can just put some foam tape on the entire of the backing though. I chose to take one of the colors. This is actually the same color that I used in the wave, although it looks different here, but it is the same color. I'm going to pop it through that organic linen embossing folder once again. Cut this down. At the moment this measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm cutting it down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches, just so that it has a nice chunky white border around it. Then I'm going to take another stamp from that same stamp set, For Everything You Do. Now I actually had a recipient in mind for this one, so although this is meant to say thanks on, like thanks for everything you do, I'm actually going to put a couple of little dots, ellipsis dots after this, for everything you do, ... and then on the inside I've got a little personal message that I want to go with this. So I know that it's kind of meant to be, but I'm taking it for everything you do, and then I'm going to add an extra. So don't worry, I didn't mess up here. And as I said, I already knew who this one was going to, so I knew why I chose the colors and things. So anyhow, I have my little sentiment ready to go, and then I am going to pop some little foam tape on the back here. Just a handy little hint, if you are wanting to curve your foam strips, then take off the release paper from the other side and they will bend around any corners, really sharp corners, super easy without kind of lifting from the paper. So this is all nicely popped up. I'm going to pop this right in the center. I've got my extra little circle ready to go. I can remove my mint tape now that they're all jointed together. And then I want this little sentiment that is going to cover up that little line in between where everything joins, the joining line. And I think that just tidies everything up beautifully. I've got a little banner end to my little sentiment, and then I pop my little circle right on top of it. Then once I've got that, I just need to leave it to dry and put it aside for a minute or two. But I'm liking this at the moment. I'm going to add the dots, and then I think I must have been having a day of it, because when I pull these two cards in and I look at the red card and I think I didn't finish that off. So when I was popping these down, trying to do the end film, the very end part, and show you the cards, I thought I forgot to do it. So I took a little strip of my the same coloured cardstock that I have the hello stamped in, and all I'm going to do is actually finish it off with a rounded end, just so it kind of keeps in line with the circles. Pop this along the edge, and I think this makes all the difference. It tidies it up beautifully. So there we go. There are two of my cards using the layered circles technique to create our wave. Thank you so much for joining me today. As usual, all the supplies will be listed down below. I also have links to the Buy Me a Coffee if you would like to support my channel. Other than that, I really look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks so much. Bye.